I'm Aaron. This is the second video about the social era. I think there's going to be maybe 2 to 3 more after this one. It just keeps getting bigger and bigger in my head. Anyways, if you're interested in seeing the first part, it's here. I'm going to be talking about the social era as described by Nilofer Merchant in her book called The 11 Rules for Creating Value in the Social Era. I've taken what she's written and synthesized it with some of the stuff that Simon Sinek has written in his book Start With Why. And that's why the title of this web episode is called The How, The What, and Stupid People. So let's get started. Traditional strategy, the behemoth of the 20th century, focused heavily on what a company did to create value. This all changes in the social era, where companies will focus on how value is created. What a company does still matters, but it's going to be heavily influenced by how a company creates value. To sum it up, traditional strategy, what a company does to create value. In the social era, how does a company create value? When I started writing the second part of this web series, I wanted to say that the social era was against processes and structures. But then I recorded it, watched myself, and realized I can't say that. Nilofer's commentary, one of her blog entries saying that Porter's value chain doesn't work, threw me for a loop. I understood the logic behind it all, but my conclusion was that processes and structures don't work. But in fact, it's what the processes and structures that address, that's the problem. This flash of inspiration came to me while I was on vacation. Actually, it was while I was on the airplane flying to my vacation. So my vacation actually wasn't much of a vacation because I'd be lying on the beach thinking, what and how? Oh, what and how? The problem wasn't the actual process and the structure. The problem was what these processes and structures are trying to address. In the social era, everything is about how we can create more value. Processes and structures will be created and tailored to answer that question. How do we create more value? In traditional strategy, those processes were created to ensure that we could protect what created that value. We need to change our thinking and say, how can we create more value rather than trying to protect what we've already done? For the most part, in traditional strategy, companies are identified by the goods that they produce and the services that they provide. Sure, the initial premise for the company might have come out in a burst of innovation and creativity, but traditional strategy teaches us that the moment that we find something that creates value, that makes money, we erect all these walls and barriers to stop others from enjoying additional value from whatever we've created. We're taught to protect it, to maximize everything that we can get out of it. We tune everything in the company to maximize the gain from what is creating value for us. For example, Porter's 5 Forces teaches us to focus on competitive advantages. And really these competitive advantages can be seen as barriers, these walls that people have to go through in order to get to the heart of the company or to get to what the company produces. It teaches companies to stymie others by making it really difficult to compete with them. These barriers usually revolve around money. It's the easiest thing to measure. So cheaper labor, reduced costs, efficiencies, and all these things generally are created, called competitive advantages or barriers, to prevent the competition from succeeding in that market segment. Even though a competitor has a better product or is being more innovative, if they can't breach these competitive advantages or barriers, they lose. In a way, traditional strategy is actually keeping consumers from better things. Traditional strategy is really about making it so painful for your competitors to compete with you that you win. And again, making it painful usually doesn't come from being more innovative. It usually comes from managing your costs, managing money and time. Another example would be anything within a corporation, corporate hierarchy, corporate business processes, or anything related to the science called dehumanizing humans, or operations management. The moment we view humans as cogs, the moment that we put a $sign on top of their heads and we give them a timer, we dehumanize them. And by dehumanizing them, we can then just look at them as cogs in a giant machine and tune them for efficiency. By ignoring what makes us unique as humans, we can then easily tweak and improve how things are created and produced. It's easy for us to say what that cog does in the general scheme of things. Look at a business hierarchy. Every position, every level, every box has a position, and that position describes what that individual does or what that group does to ensure that that company creates value. So you must be thinking by now, Aaron, what's the alternative? Welcome to the social era. In the social era, companies will be focused on how they can create value. What a company does is still very important, but everything that a company does will be shaped by how they are able to create more value. What do I mean by the how? Well, I'm going to generalize here, and I do a lot of that in these videos, but it's a general video. Well, in traditional strategy, the products and services that creates the value for that company usually comes from a guy wearing a bunch of suits who are sitting in a tiny room with really nice leather chairs. And they all probably have a degree called the Magical Business Achievements Group. I mean, they usually have an MBA. And they're behind closed doors, and they're seemingly making arbitrary decisions to say, this is what we're doing to create value. In this social era, value is not going to be created from behind closed doors. It's going to be created from asking, how can we create value? And it's not just asking your employees. You're asking your employees, your suppliers, your vendors, even your competitors and clients. You're asking everybody, collectively, how can we, as a group, create more value? And we come across one of the keywords in the social era, co-create. Co-creating value. That sounds fun. The shift from what to how is very, very profound. It sounds very, very simple, but it's very, very profound. That's a lot of very, very. When you say what, when you tell somebody what, you're giving a statement. You're telling them, this is what I do. Whatever I am saying, I know what the answer is, and done. No conversation. But when you ask how, you're asking a question. And when you're asking a question, you're looking for an answer. You're not telling them a statement. You're not ramming it into their face saying, bleh. You're asking a question. You want them to give you an answer. Asking how illustrates a willingness to learn, to see what is out there. And when you ask, how can we create more value collectively through everybody that's involved in your business, the answer that you end up on gets better over time, and it gets better with more people. All the business processes and structures that come out of the social era will revolve around what makes us human, what makes us unique as humans. Wow, that just sounds so warm and fuzzy. These processes and structures, they won't be clean cuts. There will not be a clear-cut answer. And that blows me away because I'm an engineer and everything needs to be a nice rounded number. Everything has to be finite. But I can tell you, fellow engineers who are out there, the social era is going to be really fuzzy and gray. I'm warning you. What do I mean by clean-cut and finite ends? Well, people will not just have one role with 7 duties. Everyone's going to have multiple roles and play different roles at different times depending on where they are in the entire process of creating value. In fact, the social era will give people the benefit of the doubt that they're intelligent human beings, that they're creative, that they can solve problems, and that they're capable of making generally rational decisions. Generally. This is the complete opposite in traditional strategy, because in traditional strategy, you're assumed to be stupid. I'm not saying people are stupid. I'm saying traditional strategy assumes that people are stupid. Mindless corporate zombies. Take a look at the corporate hierarchy. The fewer number of boxes at your levels, the smarter that you're going to be. That's what traditional strategy is telling you. I remember when I first started working as a young engineer, I was a junior engineer on probation. I was about down here on the corporate level. I remember looking at 5 levels up. I was like, wow, that guy must be so smart. I remember looking at the top of this corporate hierarchy going, that guy must be brilliant! The more money you make, the smarter you are. The fewer people at your level, the smarter you are, the better you are. So if you don't have any of those things, you're not as good as everybody else, you're going to be assumed to be stupid. Another example that illustrates the fact that traditional strategy assumes that people are stupid is the use of business jargon. Why do we, as business professionals, feel the need to boost our egos by bedazzling our verbal diarrhea that comes out of our mouth? Bedazzling our verbal diarrhea. Drinking the Kool-Aid? Corporate values. Bleh. Boiling oceans? Peeling onions? Giving 110%. Opening the kimono? The goal is not to befuddle and confuse and to make yourself seem smarter by using words that actually really don't mean anything, like core competency. That doesn't make any sense. Core mediocrity should be what it's called. You can't work with anybody else if you can't communicate with them properly. Business jargon, bad. I don't think the people or the processes that came up with traditional strategy initially thought, people are stupid. No, I'm not saying that. I'm just saying that they assume that you're stupid. Now, I don't think this assumption of stupidity happened on purpose. Back in the day when traditional strategy was bleeding edge, business jargon, lay people didn't know any better when it came to being part of a business. They weren't enlightened the way that we are now, being able to access any sort of information over the internet through a couple of clicks, being able to connect halfway across the world with people to share our ideas, to find open-minded, like-minded individuals, to create things, these videos. None of this would have happened without, the evolution of the internet and technology. But because we have that ability to make our own decisions, we have the information, the same kind of information. Those who weren't privileged to that information didn't know any better. They weren't given the opportunity to be better, to have a voice. They were assumed to be stupid. Now, I'm not saying we never needed traditional strategy. Traditional strategy got us to where we are today. It was a necessary step, but I believe it's on the way out. We can't assume that people will fit as cogs in a giant machine. We are unique as humans. We are all perfectly capable of being creative, solving problems, and making generally rational decisions. We all have a voice, and in the social era, it's all about harnessing these voices to create more value. The more voices we harness, the louder we get, the bigger difference we can make, the more value we create. Now, this might sound a little bit crazy, and if you watched up to this point, you probably think I am crazy. But it's that opportunity to harness these voices that really drives me as a leader. Back in my undergrad, I was the president of my class. And we all had these crazy competitions each year where we would dress up in these weird costumes based on a theme. And we would compete. We'd parade through the university, and we'd try to be cool. Engineers were not cool. I remember on the first day of the competition, waiting for the organizers to call out my department. Because I was a class president, I was out front, and there was about 60 of my classmates behind me. I remember being completely terrified at that moment. I felt that I was not ready for whatever was going to happen. I felt like hiding. I remember our department name being called, and I remember hesitating, just for that split second, saying, "Oh my gosh, I can't do this." But the fear of actually being a coward overwhelmed me, and I started chanting. And a split second later, all my classmates started chanting. We were all facing in the same direction, and it was literally just this wave of sound that overcame me. It blew me away because it's 60 voices, all screaming, yelling in unison for one thing, to call out the department name. That moment, that changed me, that shaped me as an individual. Hearing all those voices in unison made me realize that a group of people unified in their purpose can do anything. Now, it sounds like I'm on a tangent, but I'm not. I'm going to bring it all together. The social era is about how we can create value with everyone around us. To do that, we need to listen to all the voices of the employees, competitors, clients, suppliers, vendors, everybody that's involved in your business. But how do we unify all those voices? How do we turn it into something powerful? By using social purpose. Again, social purpose is a concept outlined in the book. I encourage you to read it. In the grand scheme of the why, start with why, it's the why in the social era. By using social purpose. Social purpose is basically the pointy end of the stick of the social era. In my opinion, anyways. I believe it's more powerful than money, more powerful than a fancy title, and we're going to talk about it in the next webisode. It's the why of the social era. So, again, my name is Aaron. I'm an innovator at a company called Advanced Spatial Design, and we're located in Canada. If you're viewing this video, it's most likely on YouTube. And I encourage you to check out some of the other things that we've created. Now, we've got all that kind of corporate-y stuff that we created. But we also do have the first episode of the social era. Welcome to the social era. We also have some other opinion pieces about the industries that we work in, such as the geomatics. We've got one that says, nobody cares about geomatics. And over here, we've got something called the Bad Boss Diaries. And this is really, well, I think about it now, it's really traditional strategy versus the social era in a smaller manner, in a funnier manner. I do encourage you to check it out. There's new episodes every Tuesday for this, for the Bad Boss Diaries. So I think that's all I've got for now. See ya.